Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast where a behavioral scientist examines what it's like to live a humorous life. Glimpse into the lives of the funniest people in entertainment, business, and science as your host, Dr. Peter McGraw, explores their habits, motivations, and secrets to success. Get ready to fire up your brain and your funny bone. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast that looks at the lives of funny people. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Brianna Williams. Brianna is a zoo worker and a comedian. She has performed as part of Melbourne Fringe, Perth Fringe World, and the Melbourne Comedy Festival. Nowadays, she can be seen regularly as part of the Big Hoo-Ha on Friday nights at the Butterfly Club in Melbourne, and is one of the hosts of The Bachelor Unpacked for Channel 10. Welcome, Brianna.
Thanks. That was so lovely. That's such a complete and comprehensive... I think the words "the big hoo-ha" are meant to be said in an American accent, so you've finally given it completion.
Is that right? So, wait, okay, so I'm going to say the big hoo-ha, and then you say the big hoo-ha.
Yeah.
Okay, so the big hoo-ha.
The big hoo-ha.
You think it sounds better?
I do. Well, because the Sam Longley who created the big hoo-ha got the name from... Oh, God, I never remember the name of the film, but it's an Al Pacino film, and he says it. Hoo-ha.
Like, from A Scent of a Woman.
You got it, yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say The English Patient, and not the same. I don't think Al Pacino's in that now.
Hoo-ha.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with a little Italian.
Yeah. So I feel like this is being said in its purest form right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so suppose... you couldn't be working on the big hoo-ha, working as a comedian, or working at the zoo.
Oh, wow.
What would you be doing?
That's such a hard question to answer. I have already had another life. I used to be a high school drama and English teacher.
Mm-hmm. I found that out. I have this.
Did you? Oh, yes. Man. What is out there about me? But I, like a lot of kids, I think, I did have quite a dream of being a paleontologist. So Jurassic Park is my favorite film in the world.
Okay.
And yeah, paleontologist or marine biologist would have been my other two. But then, like a lot of people who just left high school, I tried journalism.
Okay.
I tried just kind of regular arts and writing, and yeah, I don't know. I've ended up in this kind of sweet spot. I've got these two sweet gigs, doing
a daytime job and a nighttime job.
Yeah. And I just I'm in this weird zone where I'm like, man, I don't want anything about my life to change.
But I'm making you change it so you go back to being a high school teacher?
Look, and there's a lot of joy to be found in that.
You're not convincing me.
No, I guess I would follow that with saying I don't regret leaving it whatsoever. I don't. I miss the relationships you have with the school, like the teachers and your faculty and and the kids, and even kind of things like knowing the kids' families. That's pretty beautiful. I always think that's awesome. And I was lucky because I taught at my high school. I graduated from this school and then I went back to teach there 10 years later.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was quite nice. There's nothing there's no better way of having empathy for the kids than knowing that you stood in the same spot in that uniform.
Knowing how tough their life is.
Yeah.
You know how tough their life is having been there before.
Yeah. And knowing what it's like to be, a high school student in that green and white uniform. So much anxiety, so much stress, so much social pressure, so many changes all the time. And then you add into it the obvious anxiety that I think any child would feel now is amplified by the fact that they have access to all this information. Yeah. Kids get traumatized before breakfast these days. I
think it's harder to be a kid.
Yeah, I really, really do. I've stopped looking at my phone for the first hour that I'm awake because it's a really good way of avoiding the latest horrible thing in the news until I'm feeling a little more able to be resilient toward it.
Yeah, it's a little tough out there.
It really is. Isn't that a stinker?
It is.
Yeah.
So you said being a paleontologist. So I was having a conversation with one of my, oh my God, I can't believe I just said one of my mates. So one of my friends, I've been here for a while now.
Yeah. We're absorbing you.
I like that. I like the term mate.
Yeah. It's lovely.
It's really communal. It's a much better form than comrade.
Well, comrade carries quite a few connotations.
But it has in some ways the same kind of meaning.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So we were out for White Night last night and went to the Melbourne Museum, which featured dinosaurs really heavily.
Yeah.
And I shared an unpopular opinion.
Okay, hit me.
Which is like, I'm like, dinosaurs? Eh.
You find them boring?
I mean, I just don't have the same passion and an excitement about them.
This opinion is unacceptable.
It's an unpopular opinion.
It's unacceptable to me.
And it led to us to having a conversation about unpopular opinions. And I was like, you know what? That's a great question for the pod.
Yeah, right. What is an unpopular opinion?
So what unpopular opinion do you have?
Oh, so many, Pete. Like, I have I'm so proud of like where I've come from because I'm one of 7 children and we've had this.
Are you from Perth?
I am from
Yes,
Perth.
that's
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not necessarily proud of Perth, but I'm proud of like our weird little family and our strange upbringing and like our kind of, us parenting each other because our parents had too many children.
Okay.
Like I'm proud of the fact that, we've gone from where like, I'm one of this group of 7 quite extraordinary adults. We've got 2 doctors in the family, an occupational therapist. My brother's a biomedical engineer and a programmer and my sister's studying engineering. My other brother's a librarian and like we're...
And you're a zoo worker.
And I'm me. Well, okay. Yeah. Sorry to do. Yeah, look, I'm constantly stressed about that. Don't worry. But, we all love each other so much and it's so lovely. But as a result, we do have this weird little tight-knit group that kind of really validates each other's opinions. And I think we particularly, this is something I've had to try very, very hard to shake, to rewrite this narrative, but I do think people need to be tougher.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know that's such that is so unpopular. Like, I would never... It's good that this is being said now, because I'd never write this down and put it on the internet. Like, within reason, people need to be tougher. Uh-huh. I really do think that.
That's interesting to me for 2 reasons. One is I thought you were going to say we should have bigger families.
Oh.
I bet you were going to make a case for like... No. This 1-2 child family thing.
No, I also think that. But conversely, we can't have any more people. Mm-hmm. If anything, stop having families. Just like grow up with your friends and like live in a commune with all your mates as you get older. That's what I think. Like, what a great family is that? Then you're never alone. Mm-hmm. But I know that this incessant need to breed is unfortunately part of being a mammal or any animal, I suppose.
Yeah, we're good at it.
We're great at it.
Yeah.
Having said that, only children, they're weird. They are. And I've got several quite close friends who have no siblings, and I'm like, you're strange. Like, you're weird to me. They're weird.
Do you think that... Oh, I won't make you answer this. So getting back to the be tougher thing, do you think having siblings makes you tougher?
I don't know if it's the siblings. I think everyone, and I think as well, like, I suppose I should place a caveat on that, which I know that people are tough in lots and lots of ways. Mm-hmm. Like, there's, items where people are like, yeah, I really need to have the aircon on. And I'm like, oh my God, just deal with the hot weather. Go! Like,
right.
Whereas they're probably tough in ways that I'm not,
right.
Like I do think people need to be tougher, but there's also the caveat that I know that people probably have a struggle of their own that they're being as tough as they can with. Uh-huh. But, like I've run camps for kids where they get a fright and they burst into tears and there's no consoling them after that. And it's just so interesting where I think about like looking back on my childhood and I wonder now, it's as we were saying, it's so different.
Yeah.
There's a lot more access to the available trauma to children. So no wonder resilience is an issue. Like, we talk about resilience in schools a lot, where it's like, how can we make our kids more resilient? But what are we making them more resilient to? That's the other question. Mm-hmm. Are we setting them up for life?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I've had to tie 11-year-old shoelaces before.
It's funny. There's there's all these kind of like gurus and, life hackers and folks who are trying to, write self-help books. And, there's too many. That's not to say that some of them don't have quite good insights. There's this guy, this American named Jocko.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Familiar with this?
I'm not,
this guy?
but I believe that is an American person.
Yeah. I should have just said there's this guy Jocko. And he's either going to be.
And I'm like, he's probably from Buffalo, right?
Yeah, that's right. So he's a former Navy SEAL.
Goodness.
You know, and you know, if you want to point out a group of people who are tough, that's a pretty good one, at least physically, mentally.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's a very traditional view of what tough is.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, taking pain and all this kind of, and those, it's obscene, what those guys go through. But he has a saying, and it's just be tougher.
Be tougher.
And it's funny because sometimes I say it to myself, right? There are kind of moments in time where, like, you just like, you know what? That's the only solution.
I just need to toughen up.
This is the only solution in this.
And I guess, like maybe by be tougher, what I kind of am saying is like, be tougher about the thing that, you know, that you're not resilient toward. Like absorb that. Be bigger than it. And I think, you know, like for me at the moment, being tougher is doing things like really scaling back my social media use. Because it's given me such a, you know, bloody anxiety disorder that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get rid of this thing I don't need.
Yeah.
This thing I didn't have up until 12 years ago that now seems to consume so much of life, like everyone's lives, not just mine. And I think that social media can be super fun and connects people. Yeah, like my thing at the moment is like, just don't go on it. Yeah. Just don't do it. Like, don't go on there, you know, just don't do it. And that's actually surprisingly tough. But I'd rather walk into that and just do that and like be hard on myself if I slip up than not change that habit, which has become unfortunately quite destructive for me.
Yeah, I understand. I've been weaning myself in various ways from social media, you know, where the benefits no longer justify the costs.
Yeah.
You know, and this sort of be tougher idea is interesting. There are times where I find myself worried, ruminating, reluctant. And what I try to do in those situations, when I recognize that I'm doing it, is then I commit to doing that thing. Because it has to be the case that it's not going to be as bad as my monkey mind is making it, you know? And sometimes it's little, like I used to do this yoga class at this gym, and some of my mates in the class would stay and do. No. They would. The earlier class was called dance jams.
It's also very American.
Yes.
Was Jocko there?
No, it was all women. Dance jams was all women.
Okay, cool.
And these two women were like, you should do dance jams with us. It's so much fun. It's great. And for weeks I was like, no thanks, no thanks. And I realized the reason why I didn't want to do dance jams was not because I didn't want to dance. It was because I was scared to do dance jams because it was going to be embarrassing and I wasn't going to be good at it. And so
you're the only dude in a class of all women. Like that can be very confronting for men.
Yes.
And this is my challenge to men is be tougher.
Yes.
Like, but not in the traditional masculine way, like Jocko. Be tougher about the things that scare you. Be emotional. Be upset.
Vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
And that is tough for men. It's tough for women too. But my friends and I have been talking a lot lately about how society has really just served men such a raw deal in so many ways, in terms of the fact that I don't know many men who have sat down with their male friends and had a conversation about masculinity and how they're limited by it or how they're frustrated by it or how, you know, like women have so many avenues in which to discuss these things.
Yes.
And even to analyze things like dates and that sort of thing. You know, there is so many stories that are now coming out about the questionable actions of men on dates. Like Aziz Ansari is such a good example. And I bet you anything, he's never had a chat to his friends where he's been like, man, I was on a date with this girl last night and she seemed kind of uncomfortable. Should I have done this thing differently? Should I have tried this differently?
What do you do in that situation? No, you know, ask their advice and opinions and and figure out what's going on.
I feel like I'm fortunate, I guess. Now I feel like I'm bloody tooting my own horn. But I guess I feel like I'm often told I'm quite direct. Whether or not that may or may not be the truth in comparison to other people. I'm sure Jocko is a lot more direct than I am. But I am told I'm quite direct. And that's cool. Like, I like being able to be direct because I know that being direct is something that really scares me. So, like, the fact that I'm being told I'm direct means that I'm at least doing something that is tougher. than I previously have been.
Yeah, I think this notion of what you're describing, I think, is counterintuitive, which is I went to dance jams.
You went to sorry, I didn't get the end of the story.
No,
you went
fine.
to dance jams.
I went to dance jams and I had a fabulous time. It was great. And it was fun and we laughed and I was a little, I basically played. What happened was I realized that I couldn't do both the arm movements and the leg movements.
Oh, no.
So I had to choose.
Yeah, right.
So I ended up doing sort of more like a river dance kind of dance jams. But it was still fun.
Well, your surname is McGraw.
Yeah.
I assume there's some
my
Celtic.
DNA,
Yeah.
That's right. But I think what you're highlighting is this notion of vulnerability. And I'm noticing there is starting to become a conversation around vulnerability and masculinity.
Yes.
And how those are not actually mutually exclusive. Actually, what they are they're collinear. That is that if you truly want to be masculine, you have to be willing to express what it is that you want and how you feel and risk being rejected.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at least in a date, like for instance, in a dating situation.
Yeah, which is like,
Right.
this is kind of our litmus test for the things that scare us the most, I think. Like, we don't have bears chasing us anymore. Well,
Yes.
you might in Colorado.
Right.
But we don't have prehistoric megafauna chasing us anymore.
Yes.
So now the thing that seems to terrify people the most are relationships, the factors in and around them, starting them, ending them, the middle of them,
Yes.
expanding them. And, the countless stories I have of my brilliant, inexpressively beautiful female friends who are like, man, this dude really dogged me. And it's just because he was scared. And that's almost always the root of the issue.
Yes.
There's this thing we're both set up to fail. My friend described it once as men are shitheads and women are stupid. Because, sorry. Just for the record, Pete looks really disappointed. But there's this thing, right, where, we're all told to get into relationships.
Yes.
But then what happens once you're in them, right?
Right.
Once you're in them, there is a labor that I think that a lot of women are programmed to perform for men. A lot of men are programmed to believe occurs for them. And so they stop expanding themselves. They stop challenging themselves. And the mere challenge for them is like staying in this relationship, which is oh so scary. My word, the companionship of a beautiful woman for the rest of my life who's going to take care of me and be a surrogate mother and sex partner. No, it shouldn't be as scary as that. Like, really, it's a pretty sweet deal. But and then there's this challenge that women have where they have to absorb, they have to be bigger than this thing. I don't know. And these are all like quite traditional struts, and I guess I'm just surprised at always finding they still exist in various ways. Yeah.
Well, part of the problem with that, what's happening within the relationship is that people haven't done the work in terms of the starting it.
Yeah.
Right? So, the reason that men get called shitheads, I think.
Sorry.
Is that what happens is they meet this beautiful, let's say, we can take it out of traditional gender roles. We can just say, you meet some beautiful, smart, appealing person and you're drawn to that person and all the wonderful things that, from the laughs to the companionship to the sex and so on. But if the person isn't willing to be vulnerable and say the things that might scare that other person off, right? Because that's what happens, I believe, a lot of the time is people obscure the truth, what they truly want and desire, their preferences, what they believe, because they were worried that this person will hear that and go, see ya.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate, right? Because what you want is that person to say, see you later, if indeed that belief, that want doesn't match.
Yeah.
And if you hide it, now you're trying to make this thing that may not be a great match to begin with work.
Yeah.
Right? And so to get what you want, you actually have to risk losing what
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the idea of being tougher.
If you have to bend out of shape to make it fit, it ain't right.
Yeah, but I think the issue is what people aren't doing is they're not bending out of shape. They're just hiding that shape. And then you have to deal with it later after.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it. I think, obscuring the truth is absolutely, gosh, we're so programmed to do that.
Same, yeah, in this case, it ends up being the same as lying. Because it has the same effect.
Do you think it's like a herd mentality? Like a lot of animals, what they do when they're sort of weaker or sick or like injured or whatever is they... Let me get there. I started the sentence and then didn't think about the end. Do you think that like a lot of, like herd animals...
Or desperate.
Desperate. They like hide their injury, they hide their pain so that the predator that's waiting nearby doesn't pick them off. And I think we kind of do that too. We hide the sad or scary thing about us because it might be too much. For another person to handle.
And sometimes it is, right? Because you don't have the kind of foundation to navigate some of these things. I think that's tough.
Yeah, I think every person in the entire world should go into therapy for a bit. Like, is that an unpopular opinion? I don't know if that is or not.
Not with me. I think that I definitely believe that if you're willing to spend money on a doctor for an injury or to pay someone to help you improve your nutrition or a trainer to help you work out harder or a tutor to help you speak a language better, then why not pay a professional to help you work through
your mind better?
Exactly. And especially given how prevalent you might only speak that language every so often. You only work out but your thoughts and feelings are.
I can't imagine it not helping anyone. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think to me the issue is about fit. Right? It's easy to find a general practitioner who can, you know what I mean, help you with your ear infection.
Yeah.
I think it's actually difficult to find a therapist.
Yeah.
That is a good fit for personality and problems and so on. So I think there's a little bit more of a search that goes into it. When you find a good one.
Oh, mine's great. Her name is Sharon.
Okay.
She's amazing. I've tried to find her on Facebook. Not to be her friend, but just to look at her.
So you could, because I'm sure she comes up in your conversations with people.
Oh, so all the time. And I just wanted a bigger picture of her. Right. Yesterday, I saw her for the first time in a while, actually, and she's talked about her husband. And I was like, there's more clues to put together the picture of this person who knows my deepest, darkest secrets, who I know so little about.
You know, the thought experiment about how difficult it is to be vulnerable is if you find yourself not willing to be honest with your therapist.
Oof. Imagine that.
That shows how hard it is to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Is the one person who has your best interest 100%.
You're paying them to do that.
Yes, that's right. And the code of ethics and all these things.
Yeah.
If there's anyone you can trust, it has to be this person.
Yeah.
It should be this person.
Have you ever lied to your therapist?
No, I've never outright lied to my therapist, but I have definitely found times where I was reluctant to be fully honest about my beliefs. Again, it's easier to omit than it is to commit. By the way, my therapist, I call him the poet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I give nicknames to the, people say, oh, I got a guy, I got a guy for that. Or, you have your person works on your car or cleans
Jocko to help you toughen up.
Yeah, so I give, my financial person, her name is Money Amy.
Money Amy.
So
I would love her to dress in money themed outfits, like the Riddler or something. She's got green dollar bills hanging off her.
And I'm like, oh, you need to see Money Amy.
Money Amy.
And they're like, who's Money Amy?
Well, she's kind of who she sounds like.
That's right. Yeah. So he's the poet.
The poet.
Well, he's the great grandson. He's in some lineage of the poet Yeats.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's rad.
So he's, so hence the nickname.
That's cool.
And it sticks. And also, it fits too in some ways, in the terms of you think about poets, you think have some insight into.
No better therapy than writing it down. Really. I mean, I won't I totally believe in people expressing themselves, and as much as I am a celebrator of vulnerability and being vulnerable, I will also not necessarily go and see, like a stand-up show that I can see as clearly therapy for that person.
Oh, right.
Because I think that's a different thing. When we're taught to tell stories in a professional sense, like if we talk about, storytelling nights, which is a big thing here, and I'm sure in America as well. But like, you want to tell the audience something that you're over. You want to tell the audience something that you've processed. Okay. The audience doesn't want to see you working it out necessarily, because that's quite
uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And I think it's okay to be uncomfortable. I think it's definitely okay to be uncomfortable in theatre and in comedy, but it shouldn't be for your benefit.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I think that's right.
It should be for their benefit.
Yeah, when you watch a film and, a filmmaker is going to create discomfort, they're also going to resolve that discomfort.
Right.
But when someone's doing a bit about the problem they're having, there's not going to be resolution.
Yeah.
Right? In a story, in a moth or whatever, this has happened and it's worked out.
Yeah.
In some way, and that by virtue of that has created some distance and some closure.
Yeah. And there does need to be that palatable distance, I think, between the performer and the audience, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's nice. I like the idea that, this is art and commerce.
Yeah. It is. I was saying this the other day, like doing a fringe festival now. Gosh, the people that are doing these shows are like some of the most talented people in the world. Not only have they written and often directed their own shows, they've then gone on to, promote it, produce it, publicize it.
Right.
And then on top of that, now an expectation is to sell merchandise on top of that as well. And people are selling like pins with their faces on it or bags and stuff. I think it's just the most incredible, like, small business model. Literally the smallest business, because it's usually just one person.
Yes.
You can talk about brave. God, it's impossible, the pressures that people are putting on themselves in order to participate in these festivals.
I probably have mentioned this before in the pod. I have a very close friend, a comedian, Shane Moss. He would like Shane, because Shane's thing is, if I find myself reluctant to write about it or think about it or talk about it, I have to
That's great.
work on it
as
part of a bit.
Yeah.
Because he's like, that's the most real, and it's the thing that's going to be most interesting and compelling and so on.
Yeah.
I want to change.
Okay, sorry.
So I've noticed you're scaling back.
I am scaling back.
So you're scaling back. So you've scaled back on your social media use.
Yeah.
You were telling me in the elevator on the way up here, you've scaled back your lifestyle. You've downsized from a big place to a smaller place.
Yep.
From more roommates to fewer or no roommates.
Oh God, if only I could live on my own. No offense, Rob and Deanne. You guys are both great housemates. They are lovely. But it's, I don't think the world is made for single people. And living on your own is quite financially impossible for a single woman who works casually at a zoo and in comedy. I don't think the world is made for single people. I think servings come in ginormous plates that I can't possibly consume. I think that single apartments do not exist for one person. They exist for a couple. Yeah. That's what
they want.
The narrative around romance is that if you don't have it, you're doing something wrong, which is just not true. And I'm trying really hard to rewrite that at the moment. Okay. And it's something that is so deeply programmed. And I don't know if it's programmed as deeply in men as it is in women. I can speak from my experience. I'm a lady. But like, it's so present. It's so there constantly. The idea that, your soulmate is just there. There's going to be this person for you, male or female. Right. You have to end up with them or you've somehow failed. Right. Or like if, your ex-partner moves on to someone else, there's a failure there. You did something wrong there. It's the wrongness that you feel trying to absorb the idea.
Poor Jennifer Aniston. Right, only a world like this could turn Jennifer Aniston's life into a failure because things didn't work out with Brad Pitt.
Or who just seems like, sorry, but the biggest douche. Like, what a tool. Like, I mean, actors as well. And again, no offense, everyone I know, but they can be some of the most boring people on the planet. Like, sometimes the most interesting thing about these performers is that they do performance.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily like their whole life revolves around themselves. How interesting can it be? Like, yeah they're not doing anything. Like, you know, there's cool ideas in it.
My most generous take on this is they suffer from a contrast effect, which is they're portrayed as the most interesting people in the world, right? So if you have someone who lights you perfectly and films you perfectly, and some incredible writer who writes these lines for you, and people see that, then when you meet them in real life,
and
they have to be worse.
Yeah.
Right? There's no way
no way they aren't.
There's no way they're not, right? So they're just regular schmucks like us. Yeah. On average, right? Let's say.
I'm sure deeply charismatic, of course quite beautiful a lot of the time.
Yes.
But it's,
no, of course, that's a prereq.
Yeah. Right. But like, what are they doing? I don't know. Like I don't know.
Well, no. You know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Is they are they're a medium. So to me, they provide actually a really important role. They're as important as the camera. They are as they're as important as the sound engineer, as the editor, and so on, because they deliver emotion.
Yes.
Right. So what actors do is they deliver emotion, and that's not easy to do.
No.
Right, and it's not easy to be beautiful.
No.
So their jobs are not
Super
easily
hard.
replicable in that sense. Wait, we got off track. So So you were saying
downsizing.
So you're saying okay. So you're saying the world is made for couples, not for singles.
The world is made for couples and families, and being single or choosing to be single or celebrating being single, there's a wrongness in that.
Yeah.
And that's weird. Or I'm somehow like hiding some kind of deep, dark anxiety, and I spend my days drinking wine and giving myself manicures to hide the pain, when maybe I just enjoy doing those things.
But you're saying, but your point with regard to moving, downsizing, but yet still having roommates is about the economics of being single. Yeah. Because, right, so to use economic speak, right? So we all have fixed costs in the world, and couples can take more advantage, right? Because they share almost the same fixed cost as a single person. So it's actually cheaper on average. You got to team up. Each member of a couple pays less in the world than a single does.
Kind of, yeah.
I think that's an economic truism.
Yeah, like I'll buy groceries and inevitably I'll end up wasting some of them because I simply can't get through it all. But a couple will buy groceries and they'll share it together.
Yeah. Or, hotel, like so the classic is hotel rooms.
Okay.
Right. Like you need a place to stay at night.
Yeah.
You're on the road. Costs you $200. Yeah. Couple needs a place to stay at night. Yeah.
It costs
them
$100 each.
That's right. That's just the math that's associated with it. There's you'd be interested in this perhaps. There's a researcher at University of California, Santa Barbara. Her first name is Bella, I believe. I don't want to get her last name wrong, but she does research on what she calls singleism.
Holy crap. No, that's such a weird coincidence. Also is a weird coincidence is that I was also at the museum yesterday. So that's two coincidences. Okay. That's cool. I was literally reading this yesterday and I sent a link to my friend, Sophie. I sent this to you. I literally, she's a PhD. Bella. Yeah.
I wish, could you remember her last name for me?
I can literally get it up on my phone.
I'll put it, what I'll do is I always do exhibits. Well, when I say I always do exhibits, I plan to always do exhibits. Yeah. And I can link to her book or some of her work. Okay.
Single at Heart, Bella DiPaulo.
I thought that's what it was. Okay. Yeah. So, but why are you scaling back? Is it just because I want to have less pain in my life?
Pain? God, okay.
Well, the pain of paying, the pain of conflict of having 5 roommates, the pain of, hearing about school shootings. Why the scaling back?
I just want to do less. I want to be stiller. Working at the zoo, one of the questions that I get a lot is, why is that animal just sitting there? And, I feel like I constantly have to explain that, like, we're kind of the only animal that wastes energy for no reason because our food sources are so abundant. We don't have to worry about where our next meal is coming from. We can afford to do dance jams recreationally.
Right.
But like a leopard can't.
Right.
Like a Tasmanian devil can't. As people look at these animals in stillness at rest and assume there's something wrong.
I see.
There's nothing wrong with resting.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with recuperating. There's nothing wrong with being still for a bit. But humans, if we're not constantly active, constantly searching for a partner, constantly, you know, at play, there's something wrong there, which is incorrect.
Yeah.
It's okay to downsize and it's okay to recharge and be okay with it. And also not see it as like this kind of like, oh, I'm just doing stuff for me. Like, I want to recharge and downsize so that I can come back at the world and keep fixing it in the way that I want to fix it. I want to resolve the issues that I see.
Yeah, I have a question. This actually just came up the other day. I was at a conference. You know, there's not a good word for you
Me?
in the world. Yes, you in terms of your lifestyle choice.
Yeah, right.
Which the best word, which is a bad word, is spinster.
How dare you?
Right? So, you know, if you're a man, you would say bachelor.
Yeah.
That has some negative connotations, but it has some positive connotations too.
Yeah.
And it's clarifying.
Yeah.
But spinster.
I know. And sorry, Pete, I'll just describe what I'm wearing. It's an old wedding dress. It has some blood on it from what we don't know. I have cake in my pockets. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. But how dare you call me a spinster?
But, you know, so the question is, what is that word? And why does that word not exist?
The word is legend.
Okay. She just pointed her thumb at herself, too, when she said that.
No, I don't know. And, like, I'm absolutely, like, I've mourned the end of a relationship that ended, you know, last year and sort of kicked the can down the road. We kicked the can down the road a bit longer than we should have with that relationship after it ended as well. Like, it was... You know, and I mourn that, but that doesn't mean I'm not like happy that this person and I who aren't right for each other are not together. Like it's
sure, they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, like I hate to quote Louis C.K. So sorry, fuck you, Louis C.K. But like, there's no such thing as an unhappy divorce because it's good that you've ended things with that person who isn't your guy or girl. You should end it. Like, be away from them. Don't let them sap your life force for whatever reason. Like, just be cool. Like, you know, you're allowed to downsize. You're allowed to not have that pain. You don't have to absorb it all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, and the same is true for any relationship ending. I mean, really, I don't know. I'm not putting things down to fate because absolutely people make mistakes in relationships and you can look back at things and go, I regret. But... you know, most of the time it's not really your fault. It's a lot of it's timing, I think. And how do I get into this? Sorry, I'm ranting. Like, I just feel like I'm constantly...
I was in search of
the right word.
Of the right word. I mean, maybe, you know, and of course, the reason the word probably doesn't exist is this hasn't been worked out yet. Right?
Yeah.
So then there's not actually a good exemplar, prototype way to think about a woman who's not in search. Yeah. Right? Not in search of... but also not passively lying in wait either, which is something that we get a lot from art. I was discussing this with a group of one of my many girl gangs not too long ago, but like in art we consume a lot of images of women passively. Okay. Where they're lying back. And yeah, they can be naked sometimes, but if they're naked, they're hairless. There's nothing animal or passionate about them. It's this passive, pale, often quite soft looking. Yeah. You know, in recline. Yes. Awaiting. Right. Awaiting. Where men are at worst seated, somewhat royally. Even the postman. Well, that Picasso or is that who I don't know. But like Picasso's like the 16-year-olds. He's a douche. Let's not talk about him. It wasn't Picasso. Now it's one of these abstract French dudes. One of these French impressionist painters who started painting real people, not just royal people. But even this postman had a sense of. Yeah, a sense of action, a sense of urgency. Yeah. Women, you know, we wait. Oh, that's interesting. I've never thought of it that way. Yeah, and that's the idea is that we are kind of told to wait, like,
like in the
Waiting for Prince Charming. and all
waiting
the
for
fairy
Prince
tales.
Charming, I was even again ranting, which I guess is my my automatic state. If I was programmed to do anything, it would be rant. But I was ranting to a friend the other day about this, about like what people go like, oh, the right guy's out there, and I'm like, no, where is this right guy? Because a lot of my partners and a lot of the men I've dated have been very deeply average.
Okay.
And that's okay too.
Yes.
But I don't think I'm average. They might think that about me, but I don't think I am.
Okay.
And like, this isn't like a, like a stand down, men. Here comes Brianna Williams.
Right.
And she's excellent. Like,
hold on. For listeners, you just have to know there was some finger wagging,
some sassy.
Then the one, then the one thumb, then the both thumbs. Just so
and don't forget, I am wearing an old wedding dress. I'm not. But yeah, there is this thing where it's like, oh, the right guy will come along, but how and why and what's the point of this right guy? Who is he? Like,
that is that waiting and recline.
Yeah.
It's just for him. He just has to come along on his horse. Yeah.
And what makes him not as average as my other partners? Like, they've all been awesome in their ways, and some ways they've been terrible and annoying and like frustrating and but also fantastic and sometimes supportive. But like, they're not the right guy, clearly.
Yeah.
Because like I haven't ended up with them.
Yes.
But there's no end until I die, hopefully at the age of 100.
Right.
Right? Like, touch wood. Is this wood? It looks like it might be.
I think so.
Yeah. That's the end, is when I die.
Right.
So what is this right guy? Like, all of these guys at one time have been the right guy for
Clearly.
me. Because I was with them.
Yes.
And I spent time with them. I chose to spend my days with them.
It is interesting scorekeeping if the success from a relationship standpoint is how you're doing on the day that one of the two people die.
Yeah, wow.
Right? That's pretty... No, we don't do this with almost
None of my
anything else.
ex-boyfriends have died.
Okay, that's good.
One of them does my taxes for me,
Oh,
which is
okay.
really lovely.
Yeah, see, Money Amy does my taxes too.
Is she your ex-girlfriend?
No, she's not.
Then you have to call her Money and ex-Amy.
So I want to hit a few things before we wrap, okay?
Yeah.
So...
You mean like, my name's Pete McGraw, and I'm here to say...
So you work in a zoo?
I work in a zoo.
And you're a former high school teacher.
Yeah.
Which one better informed your comedy? Like, which one helps make you a better comedian?
That is such a hard question. Yeah. Probably the teaching.
Okay.
Because as I know more and more about the climactic terror that we are hurtling towards as human beings environmentally,
Okay.
I become more and more humorless.
Oh, I see. It's too much. So the zoo work makes that more salient.
Yeah, like and I'm very humorless about the animals. Like, people will be like, oh, so cute. And I'm like, that's a normal behavior and adaptation that they've done to survive. And I should just be more fun, but I'm not. I'm not fun. Like, I don't feel like I'm fun at all.
That feels like a sketch. There's a sketch out there.
Yeah. Oh, good one. Okay. I'll write that down. But yeah, like, I was talking again to the same friend who I was ranting to about, and I was like, I don't feel like I've got any chat with guys, because I'm like, do you want to talk about how we're about to run out of drinking water? And they're like, no, I don't. I want to talk about my cousins or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel like I'm not fun because I'm like, you should know that every straw you've ever used still exists, and it's probably gone on to hurt a penguin.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear that. I'm not fun.
The bio you sent me said that you're the person in the pub who tells people to stop drinking from a straw.
They're really bad for the environment.
Yeah, they are. That's true.
They really are. Yeah. It's I feel like I'm there to ruin the world one animal fact at a time. Like, people are like, oh, why is the animal doing that? And I'm like, oh, it's a horrible reason.
Well, Brianna, thank you for your service. I do appreciate it. What have you changed your mind about?
In my life?
Yeah.
Cheating on people.
Okay.
Not that I've done it.
Okay.
I still haven't. I would say that I guess there's definitely been some emotional cheating on my behalf. I've been cheated on.
Okay.
And it's not nice.
No.
But, that person's not the devil. Okay. They're not unforgivable. They're not, I used to think back in the day, I'd be like, oh, that's a deal breaker.
Yeah.
And I kind of know now that it isn't.
Okay.
I don't know if it would be for me. I think it would depend on the person and the situation that it occurred. But I see a lot of couples that in which one or maybe both of them cheat, and then they come back together and
you can be supportive of that relationship.
Absolutely.
I see.
Yeah.
I have so many questions. Oh, what are you best at?
Oh, what? Nothing. Like, as in my life?
Yeah, what are you best at? I mean, besides, like, telling people not to drink out of straws, but, like, what do you think you're best at?
That's such a hard question. I'd love to be vulnerable
and tell the world what you're best at.
I'm really, really good at remembering names and birthdays.
Oh, okay.
I'm excellent at it.
That's a tough thing. That's something that we're not evolutionarily programmed to do.
Remember names and birthdays.
That's right. We're good at faces, but we're bad with names.
Everybody
thinks, I'm bad with names, but everybody except a few people in the world are bad with names.
No, I'm really good at names. I'm actually probably a bit worse with faces. Do we have time for a really quick story?
Sure.
Okay. So I went on last year. I went on a date on this app Bumble. Have you heard of Bumble? Okay. So the guy is running late. Okay. We're going to a wine bar across the road from my now former house.
Okay.
And oh my God, I hope he never listens to this.
You're probably safe.
Have faith. Everyone might listen to this podcast. So I'm getting ready and he's messaging me and he's like, I'm running late, but I'm going to catch an Uber in. Okay. I'm like, great, no worries. I'm always late for everything, as you know. And then he messages me and he's like, I'm here. I'm the only single person at the bar. Okay, so I go up the stairs.
Yes.
I go to the bar. There's one single man there. Okay, the guy I'm meeting is named Ian. I swiped right on him because he's 40. And there's something about like a 27-year-old man that sort of kind of doesn't persuade me anymore as I age. But also, and that, not to say that I can't be convinced, but of course, like I was like 40, sure, whatever. And he also is a confectioner. One thing about having a job that sounds like a
confectioner makes pastries, or they make candies?
Like candy, like Willy Wonka.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
One thing about having a job at the zoo is that it is, it's an interesting job, I can tell you that. But often these people end up being like, no, my job is so boring compared. And I'm like, tell me more about being an accountant or being Money Amy, because like that's interesting to me because I don't do it. Yeah. But a lot of people kind of see working with animals as this like, whoa, and it is like, God, it's bloody brilliant. But like, it's also, everyone should have passion for their job.
Yes.
And often I find that I was like, confectioner, what a fun job. See, this will be a thing where we can both talk about how fun our jobs are. Yeah. Anyways, so I tried on this 40-year-old named Ian, who's a confectioner. I go to the bar. There's one single guy there. I go and I say, hi, I'm free. He says, hi, I'm Sven. And I go, good one, because I guess I assumed he was making a joke rather than realizing he wasn't the person I was meant to be meeting.
So you sat down?
I sat down, we got a glass of wine together, and he keeps dropping clues that indicate that he is not, in fact, Ian the confectioner. But at no point do I look at his face and go, gosh, this can't be the person. Because I'm like, he's a guy, he's got curly hair and a beard. They all kind of do.
And nowadays especially.
Particularly in Melbourne. And we're having a wine and he's like, and I was like, I'd done some exercise and I was like, sorry, I'm still running a bit hot from exercising. And he was like, yeah, I'm running a bit hot too from walking here. And I was like, didn't you Uber? And he's like, no. And instead of being like, man, this isn't the person, I was like, I guess I must have read that wrong. Like, why? At what point am I going to realize?
I'm so glad you're telling this.
And then eventually he's like, I'm talking about, because I am an actor, one of the most boring people in the world, as you remember me saying before. I'm talking about something that happened on my acting page. I'd gotten trolled on my professional Facebook page. I'd gotten trolled that day. I was talking about it. And he's like, yeah, because you're an actor. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, so you don't work at Carlton Cellars? And I'm like, no. What do you think I do? I guess you must have
Is there another couple somewhere else in the bar talking and she's figuring out that, wait, you're a confectioner?
Well, this confectioner is nowhere to be seen because he's the only single guy at the bar. I'm like, it has to be him. And then he stops and he goes, Brie, we're meant to be meeting other people. And I was like,
did you like him at this point?
I did. I was like, he's very fun and friendly, but I was like, Sven, why didn't you say something? And he's like, well, you were telling a really interesting story.
That's great.
And I was like, I've had like half a glass of rosé with this guy. And I'm like, well, where's my guy? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, he said he was the only single guy alone at the bar. And I said, he goes, there's 2 bars in this place. So he's been sitting there waiting for 20 minutes. And I'm like, well, where's your date? And he's like, she's running late. And I was like, fuck! And so we're both like laughing hysterically. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, good luck. And I just grab my half-drunk glass of wine. I go to the other bar, and there's Ian. Of course, he's sitting there. Yes. And I'm like, that's definitely the guy.
Okay.
That's definitely him. Sit down. Don't say anything about why I'm late. Don't say anything about my half a glass of wine. And then I'm like, hey, Ian. And he's like, yup. That's what I should have said at first. Then he's almost finished his, beer that he's having.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, this is going to be great. This is going to be fine. I don't say anything about why I'm late. And then the waiter comes up and he's like, can I get you another drink? And he kind of goes, yeah, I've got a really serious case of, and then he makes eye contact with me, not having a martini-itis. And I was like, all right. The worst thing is he wasn't even a confectioner.
What?
He was a web designer. He put confectioner there to sound more interesting.
See, this is exactly the thing about unable to be vulnerable.
You couldn't be vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with being a web designer. No. I want to make that very clear.
Right.
So this poor he was lovely. Like, he really was. As was Finn. Yeah. But he lied.
Yeah, that's not a good way to start.
Actually. And, we had a lovely evening. We chatted about lots of things, and then I went home and never saw him again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I hope one or the other hears this. If you hear this, please send me a note.
Yeah.
So I have this is going to be rapid fire.
Go. I'm so sorry I've kept you too long.
No, this is a good problem to have. I'd rather have to force these things in to meet my artificial time limit. What are you reading, watching, or listening to that's really good? Not just what are you reading, watching, listening to that really stands out.
It's really good. Man, this is going to be such a banal answer, but Stan recently they put up all of The American Office, which is a series I've always really liked. But I'm rewatching it, and at the moment, and just the characterization of the central character of Michael Scott, the equivalent of David Brent for anyone who doesn't know The American Office. And a lot of people kind of want to find The American Office inferior, but they're not. They're completely different shows. I think The British Office is great. I think The American Office is also great. But just the clarity of this character, who's just such a turd, but at the same time being so intensely likable that you want him to succeed, even though he's just an absolute poo. He's just a moron. But there's something quite clever about that ability to make the world love you, even though you're the worst.
Yeah, he's a well-crafted character. His motivations are although his actions sometimes are malicious or negative, they're not intended to be. They come from wanting acceptance. They come from love. They come from loneliness. They come from these places that are...
And these are all things that people have.
Yes,
that's
that we can identify with.
And it is such a good reminder that we do tend to reject those people who are clearly so eager for love as Michael Scott is. Man, looking back on it with this 32-year-old, I guess, within feminism, but postmodern feminism lens, looking back on it, I'm like, this is a great show and character. This is really good. And it's very well written and it's very subtle. And the Jim and Pam romance holds up quite a bit.
It does. It is nice. I found myself, I actually rewatched it recently too.
It's
it takes
a
little while to get,
and
also, it takes a little while to get going. I mean, there are times with that show, even rewatching it, that I'm alone watching it, laughing out loud.
Same.
Which is, that's unusual.
Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Go.
The secret to success.
Oh my God.
Everybody knows, but can't seem to do.
Be tougher.
Be tougher. All right.
Do the thing that you're scared to do.
Yeah.
Because, the reason you're not successful yet is because you need to try harder.
Yeah.
Is that awful? I feel like that's very...
No, but look, that's an unpopular opinion. It's okay to have an unpopular opinion.
It is, yeah. But I mean, do the thing that is tough for you. Do that thing. It's hard.
It is hard.
For me, the toughest thing is being on time. I can't stop doing the 12 million things that I want to do. And that's what I'm working on. So it's why I've started seeing my therapist again, because she's going to help me break this habit. But it's tough. And I need to be tougher. I need to be harder on myself. I need to hold myself more accountable. And I think that's a big one too. Hold yourself accountable. Don't be hard on yourself, but hold yourself accountable. Be compassionate in doing that. And I think that's scary to do. Because the last person you want kind of telling yourself off is yourself.
Mm-hmm. You want that. You got to be. And at the same time, you have to be that you're your biggest fan. You also have to be your biggest advocate.
Yeah, and I think being an advocate sometimes is being like, hey, you can do this better for you.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Brianna, this is really fun. Thank you.
It was
for
really
doing
fun. Thank you so much. And thanks for saying I'm fun. I do feel unfun. Please don't use straws. Everyone, just stop using them. Oh, they're the worst.
Cool. Thank you.
Pete.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to visit petermcgraw.org for more information about our guest, show notes, and social media links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with others. Join Dr. Peter McGraw next week for another fun, fascinating conversation on I'm Not Joking.
Yo.